You sit in every meeting but nobody waits for your opinion. Here is how you change that permanently. Your manager walks into a meeting with 3 options on the table. Everyone looks around the room, waiting for someone else to speak first. 5 seconds of silence. 10 seconds. Then one person leans forward and says, "Here is what I think we should do, and here is why." That person is not always the most senior or the most experienced. But over time, they become the one who gets promoted. Today I am going to walk you through the 5 shifts that turn you from someone who executes decisions into someone who makes them. Most professionals operate with an invisible rule in their head: I need approval before I act. Nobody wrote that rule down. Nobody enforced it. But somewhere along the way, you absorbed it and it became the ceiling on your career. The first shift is realizing that decision-making authority is not handed to you, it is claimed. At Amazon, there is a leadership principle called bias for action. It does not mean being reckless or skipping due diligence. It means when you see a reversible decision, you make it and move forward instead of scheduling another meeting. Start with low-risk calls that are currently bottlenecked. Choose the vendor for a minor tool. Set the agenda for a recurring stand-up. Draft the project timeline instead of waiting for your lead to do it. When you make these calls confidently and consistently, people start associating you with momentum. And momentum is the currency that buys you bigger decisions down the road. Decision makers are not guessing. They just know things that other people in the room do not, and that is not luck, it is built intentionally over weeks and months. The strongest decision makers I have worked with share one habit that looks almost obsessive from the outside. They talk to customers directly, even when that is not their job. They read competitor earnings calls on weekends. They sit in on support tickets for 30 minutes every single week. A McKinsey study on organizational decision-making found that executives who made faster and better decisions consistently cited information diversity as their edge, not raw intelligence, not years of experience. They simply pulled input from more sources than anyone else at the table. So start building your own information network right now. Have a monthly coffee chat with someone in sales or customer success. Read the quarterly business review cover to cover, even if nobody expects you to. Follow your company's NPS scores and churn data like it is your job. Because when a decision lands on the table, you want to be the person who says, "Actually, I spoke with 3 customers last week, and here is what they told me." That single sentence rewires how the entire room sees you. This is where most ambitious professionals stall out. They are willing to suggest a direction, but the moment someone pushes back or asks a hard question, they retreat into silence. Real decision makers do something fundamentally different: they own the downside before anyone asks about it. Instead of saying "I think we should try option B," they say "I recommend option B, and if it does not deliver results by March, here is my fallback plan." That second sentence changes everything about how your recommendation lands. It tells the room you have thought past the optimistic scenario into the messy reality. It tells your boss you will not disappear if things go sideways. Google's famous Project Aristotle research showed that psychological safety is the top driver of high-performing teams. But here is what most people miss about that finding: someone has to create that safety by going first and absorbing the risk. When you own a decision publicly, you give everyone else in the room permission to take smart risks too. You become the person who makes it safe to move forward instead of staying stuck. A decision that nobody knows about might as well have never happened. One of the biggest mistakes rising leaders make is solving problems quietly in the background. They fix the critical bug at midnight. They redirect the project before it hits a wall. They calm the frustrated client with a single phone call. And then they never tell anyone what they did or why. Visibility is not bragging and it is not self-promotion. It is strategic documentation of your judgment over time. After you make a meaningful call, send a brief message to your team or your manager. Something simple like, "Decided to push the feature launch by 1 week because QA results flagged 2 critical issues. Here is the revised timeline and what I need from each of you." That message takes 45 seconds to write. But it creates a trail that proves your judgment compounds with every decision. At Netflix, leaders operate on a principle called context, not control. They share the reasoning behind decisions openly so others can learn from the pattern and make similar calls independently. Adopt that same approach. When you make your thinking visible, people do not just trust your next decision. They start modeling their own decisions after yours. The final shift separates good decision makers from the ones who actually get promoted. After a decision plays out, whether it succeeded or completely flopped, go back and close the loop. Tell people what happened and what you learned from it. Most professionals skip this step entirely because they are afraid of drawing attention to a bad call. But closing the loop is actually the single fastest way to build deep trust. A Harvard Business Review analysis on leadership credibility found that leaders who openly reviewed their past decisions were rated significantly higher on trustworthiness and competence by their teams than those who stayed silent. When you say that launch delay I called last month saved us from a major client escalation, you reinforce your judgment. And when you say that vendor I recommended did not work out, here is what I would do differently next time, you demonstrate a maturity that 90% of professionals never show. Either outcome builds your credibility. Silence is the only thing that erodes it. So here is your one move before this week ends. Find a single small decision that is sitting in limbo right now, something stuck in an email thread that keeps growing or waiting on a meeting that has not been scheduled yet. Make the call today. Send a short message to the relevant people explaining what you decided and why. Own it clearly and completely. That is it. One decision. One message. You will be genuinely surprised how fast people start coming to you when the next decision needs to be made. And once they start coming to you, your career is no longer on the path someone else designed. It is on the one you are building yourself. I will see you in the next one. That's a wrap, thanks for watching. If this gave you one idea you can use today, hit like and subscribe. See you in the next one.